Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, because of all the craziness going down with the federal workforce right now, the big question people want to know is if I'm forced out, if I leave the government before I was otherwise planning to, can I keep my benefits? That's what we're going to dive into today. And long story short is, it depends. We'll dive into all these details. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. So good to have you. My name is Dallin Haas. I'm a financial planner who serves federal employees every day, and I absolutely love it. So let's talk through the three main ways the government is going to use to reduce its workforce and the different benefits that come along with these different types of ways to come out. And as we see here, lots of acronyms. The government loves its acronyms, so we're going to dive in. First and foremost, let's start with VERA. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but this is just an early retirement. It stands for Voluntary Early Retirement Authority. It basically allows federal employees to retire earlier than they otherwise would. So, for example, if you are age 50, all you need is 20 years to be eligible for a VERA, or if you have 25 years of service, you can retire at any age. So basically what a VERA does is it just reduces the amount of years of service you need and age requirement so that you can retire early and still get a pension right away, potentially still keep your health insurance, keep all the core benefits, okay? Now, the big key thing to know about a VERA is it's optional. It is a voluntary thing. You do not have to take it. If it's offered to you, you don't have to take it. That's the core component of a VERA. So often one of the first things agencies will try to do is offer VERA. Say, look, we are trying to reduce the people on the payroll here. Here's a VERA if you want it. That's often the first thing that happens. Now, the next type of retirement or next type of way the government tries to reduce its workforce is a DSR, or a discontinued service retirement. And this is very similar to a VERA in that the criteria are the same. If you have 20 years of service and you're age 50 or older, or if you have 25 years at any age, you can leave, get a pension right away, and get basically all the same benefits as a VERA, but there is one key difference. And that is this, a DSR, is involuntary. Basically, this happens when the government says, look, your position, your job is going away. And so we are discontinuing your service, and you can, of course, retire under these early retirement rules, but this is not voluntary. So if this happens to you, this is not optional, okay? Unlike a VERA is optional, a DSR is involuntary. It just happens to you, okay? Next, reduction in force. This is the last, but certainly not least, type of way the government tries to reduce its workforce. And certainly there is lots of talk about risks coming through. We'll see all those details as they actually happen. A reduction in force is different. And let me explain. So a reduction in force is simply the government laying people off. And there's certainly tons of rules on how they have to do it, in what order. I'm not going to go into all those details. You can see that in other places, okay? But let me just talk about what federal benefits can come with a reduction in force. So, long story short, let me make something clear. If you're already eligible for a full retirement and a reduction in force, you lose your job, okay? So, for example, if you are already eligible for a full retirement, that's MRA and 30, minimum retirement age and 30, or age 60 with 20 years, or 62 and 5, okay? So these are the core requirements to be eligible for a full retirement. Down here are the early retirement eligibility, but of course here is the full eligibility. So minimum retirement age is around age 57. So if you've hit any one of these, let's say you're 58 with 30 years, let's say you're 61 with 25 years, you're fully eligible. If you are fully eligible and a RIF happens, you simply can retire. Even if you get fired, as long as you're fully eligible, you still just retire and you maintain all the same benefits you would have otherwise had you just retired on your own. That's the key thing to know. I've had tons of people come to me who are fully eligible to retire say, what happens if I'm RIF'd? As long as you're fully eligible to retire, you can simply retire. Even if you are RIF'd, even if you're fired under a reduction in force, okay? Now, what happens though if you're not eligible for a full retirement and you get fired? Well, simply put, you will get whatever you're eligible for at that time. Basically, a type of retirement that not a ton of people want, but many people would get if a reduction in force happens, is a deferred retirement, okay? A deferred retirement. And I've got whole videos on deferred retirement. If you want to see the details of it, let me just give you the overview. A deferred retirement is what happens when you're not eligible for anything else. When you're not eligible for anything else. So if let's say you're not eligible for this, you're not offered a DSR or a VERA, you're not eligible for this. Let's say none of that happens. And you aren't eligible for this or either one of these. You're just not eligible, okay? A deferred retirement is what is left. You have to have at least 5 years of civilian service to be eligible for a deferred retirement. And as the name suggests, it's deferred, meaning you don't get a pension till later. You don't get a pension until your minimum retirement age if you have more than 30 years. You don't get a pension until 60 if you have more than 20, or if you have less than 20, you got to wait till 62. So for example, let's say you're 40 years old and you've got 20 years of service. Then if a RIF happened, you would have a deferred retirement, which means you would leave at 40, you'd be fired at 40, and then at 60, because you have 20 years, you can start a deferred pension. If you had more than 30, you get to start at 57. If you had less than 20, you'd had to have start at 62 to get that pension without reduction. Now, the key thing with the deferred, if you go out on a deferred retirement, that type of retirement comes with no retirement insurance. Health insurance, life insurance, dental vision, all of that goes away. So with a deferred retirement, yes, you'll get a pension at some point depending on how many years of service you have, but you will not keep any of your insurance, which is a huge, huge difference. Okay, so let me just recap this. These are the three main ways the government tries to reduce its workforce. Again, a VERA is voluntary. That's normally the first place they go. Next is a DSR, which is very similar to VERA, but it's involuntary. They force you out. But again, these more lenient eligibility rules for retirement are imposed in that case. If a reduction in force happens, of course, if you're already eligible for a full retirement, then you just retire. You can just retire. If you're not eligible for anything, nothing comes up that you're eligible for, then you would probably just have a deferred retirement in most cases. Now, let me say one last thing actually. So if you have met your minimum retirement age and you have more than 10 years, that's called an MRA plus 10 retirement, okay? MRA plus 10 retirement, and that technically is a immediate retirement. Now, there's some downsides to that. You can look, I've got whole videos on MRA plus 10 retirement. So if you hit your MRA, but you don't have the 30 years, but you got more than 10, then you can often keep your health insurance and get a pension right away, those core things. But there are some downsides which you can check out in the video that I've got whole videos on that. Okay, so those are just some of the key things to keep in mind as these changes happen, and I will do my best to keep you updated on the changes that happen, because in many ways this is unprecedented, or at least this sort of thing hasn't happened for a while, so it's not really fresh on anyone's mind. So I'll be here to keep you updated on all of these things. But I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.